Good morning. And yeah, happy Sunday to you. Oh, I forgot. Happy New Week to you. Oh, yeah. Happy New Month to you. Happiness has become quite performative in our country now. So we have to find something to be happy about. Birthdays were no longer enough because they're really happy. Banujelo Jori. I guarantee you, when you shout Happy New Year and then the January bills begin to show up, it's not so happy again now, is it? But yeah, we can console ourselves with Happy Sunday. Yeah, Happy New Week. Oh, and as unique as it will be, a Happy New Month to all of you. I am again compelled to record my message this morning because I've noticed some level of inconsistencies in the network and I don't want this message to be disrupted. I do not want that. My Yoruba language audience would need to pardon me. I'm going to be focused on just this English version today. I'll find a way to resolve these issues with the network, or I might end up adopting this pre-recording again. It's happened before. It might very well be the antidote to the madness that I am encountering with network these days. So we'll deal with all of that during the course of the week. But this morning, my purpose is to speak to you on the subject: what is to be done with Nigeria? The subject is one that has been on my mind for years. I've unfortunately or fortunately lived with a lifelong burden for this country. So every time I come across one of his many madnesses, I ask myself, what are we going to do about this country? What is to be done with this country? Because Nigeria is unique in its evil. The impunity that governs Nigeria, the madness that we have become acculturated to, what has become the preoccupation of government and that of the victims. It's crazy, you know. So I've been asking myself for a season, through my life actually, what is to be done with Nigeria? In looking at Nigeria, I have found that it mimics what the mathematicians will call the Riemann hypothesis. The Riemann hypothesis is an unsolvable problem in maths. The most brilliant minds have attempted to solve the problem, including Albert Einstein. He failed. Nobody has managed to crack the Riemann hypothesis. And this would appear to be the situation with Nigeria because whilst Nigeria works and makes sense for the beneficiaries of Nigeria, and it is easy to track who those beneficiaries are, they are the ones who tell you about the indissoluble Nigeria, the one Nigeria that cannot be negotiated or discussed. Those are the beneficiaries of Nigeria, but don't look only to Nigeria. Look outside of Nigeria. Look to the superstructure that has assured the maintenance of the Nigerian state and the victimhood of the Nigerian people. I want you to recall what Kani said at Davos. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. The degree to which you are marginalized by those who take decisions that affect your life is the degree of your place on the menu. The Nigerian, the victims of Nigeria, were never at the table because even our votes are not allowed to count. The judiciary, which should be our last hope, is probably the most useless of all the arms of government in Nigeria because if you cannot get justice, if it has become a systemic reality that you cannot get justice from even the highest court of the land. And this is just the bare-faced truth. Justice is for sale in Nigeria, and it is for sale for multiple reasons, and multiple currencies are involved in the purchase of justice, from religion to ethnicity to money to influence. Justice is for sale in Nigeria, and that is simply the reality. And I say this standing behind every word I have ever said in relation to the Nigerian judiciary. Every word I have ever written in relation to the, so I know exactly what I am talking about. So we live in a country that is not structured to deliver any benefit to those who live in the country. So you already know that the victims of Nigeria are on the table where the lives of Akpabio are feeding, where the likes of the judges who will be singing on your mandate are feeding. We are on the table where the traditional rulers who are in cahoots with this system are feeding. We are at the table where the religious clerics are feeding, where the once upon a time leaders of thought are feeding. We, the victims of Nigeria, are the ones on the menu. The beneficiaries of Nigeria, whether those are ex-militants, whether those are traditional rulers, whether those are politicians, judges, civil servants, everyone with their noses in the feeding trough of Nigeria, they are feeding, and we are on the menu. That is the reality of Nigeria. You cannot have a country where there are multiple layers of membership, and you cannot have citizenship in a place that is not governed or ruled by law. It is impossible to have citizenship where you don't have the rule of law. I've spoken to this extensively, and today the reality we are faced with is that in reality there are no Nigerians. It is unloved. Nigeria itself, practically every one of those on the menu wants Nigeria dead, believing that the death of Nigeria will lead to their freedom. That's why you have all the separatist movements you have, particularly in the southern part of Nigeria. That is why you have it, because it is easier for the ethnic nationalities in southern Nigeria to speak to the division of Nigeria, because it is easier for them to imagine its balkanization, because we always think of governance in terms of space. But for those who are trapped in the middle belt, who have had to deal for a lifetime, for generations, with the behemoth that was created essentially by the British, with the forced unity and its lopsided structuring and the absence of citizenship, they cannot speak to the breakup of Nigeria. So they've always been the cannon fodder for keeping it together, and they've also almost always been the recipient of the brutality of the state that is being maintained. So you have a country that is neither a fatherland, because it protects none, nor a motherland. And I say it deliberately, it protects none. You have 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. Those to whom you would ascribe the veto power of Nigeria are in the northwest. The Fulani, largely in the northwest. But if you put up a map of Nigeria today, a situational map of Nigeria, you'll find that the region that is most negatively impacted by the terrorism is the northwest. The northeast fares little better. Every part of Nigeria is at war with itself, even when it's exporting wars to other people. There is no part of Nigeria you look at where you see a state that is being governed. You have more ungoverned spaces in Nigeria than governed spaces. Most of the agents of destruction in Nigeria are agents of the Nigerian state, mollycoddled by its ruling class, created by the ruling class, who should rightly be called the ruining class. They've destroyed the country. The only persons who have remained passive through the destruction of Nigeria are the victims of Nigeria. Why are we not asking ourselves what is to be done with Nigeria? Let us look at the reality of where we are today. If a country has been designed and is unmoored, unyoked to purpose, perversion becomes inevitable. Abuse becomes inevitable. And Nigeria has been abused beyond reason. The seat of human creativity is the human imagination. And human imagination is intended to be taken at a particular age and then structured along learning pathways. In our traditional societies, even the play was intended to teach. So a child comes through life, and by the time they will be deemed to have reached adulthood in traditional African society, they would have become productive members of the society. They would have learned the rudiment of farming. They would have learned basic pharmacology. They would have been self-sustaining persons who can function within a society, a community that was based on communal living. We did things together in common. We built houses in common. We farmed in common. We went to war in common. We lived as societies, functional communities, and then the white man came. The white man came and then brought a structure, bringing Nigeria and everything, and then you created an educational system. The educational system created upon the creation of Nigeria with the white man and everything was one that I was a beneficiary of. It was intended to teach you, get your brain together. Maybe the purpose of the education might be said to have been colonial in nature, but we've been independent for 60 something years. Now, put it this way, the country that we have built, according to UN figures, we have over 30 million children out of school. I'm not talking or speaking to the quality of education these children are receiving. I'm not going to speak to the fact that in China, you have doctorate degree holders teaching in kindergarten and primary schools. I will not speak to that. I am speaking to the fact that don't look to the inadequacy of facilities or the illiteracy of the teachers themselves. Let's look to the fact that in spite of this decrepit educational system, we still do not have the capacity to place over 30 million Nigerian children in a learning environment. They're learning nothing. They're not being equipped for life. Yesterday, Facebook memory brought something that I had said 9 years ago. How we are going to be having an epidemic of gamblers because the state has refused to regulate gambling. And it has proven to be prescient because when you look at where we are today, you realize that we've now raised a nation of gamblers and enablers of gambling. To what purpose? But that is not my purpose this morning. My purpose is to tell you that the 30 million children that have no classrooms are Nigerians like me and you. They will vote, quote and unquote, like me and you when the time comes in the future. And the 30 million is today's figure. There were 20 million in previous years. And those 20 million have graduated into the class of people who are easily misled, barely literate, told that you are their enemy simply because you speak a different tongue or you worship God in a different fashion. Those are the people with whom you are Nigerians, and that is what the system has deliberately designed because it has weaponized ignorance. And ignorant people are easier to ruin because they will not be asked to ask the question that I'm asking of us this morning. What is to be done with Nigeria? I don't want to waste time on issues that you can see by yourself. I just spoke to elementary school levels. What about the universities? I went to LASU. I was educated in LASU. What kind of minds are in LASU today? The minds that are singing on his mandate, they shall stand. Those are the ones that are being educated in Lasso today. The same Lasso of dare to struggle, dare to win. The same Lasso that was deemed the most militant but reasonable student union in this country. The heritage that was inherited by the likes of us and passed on to subsequent generations that are today singing on his mandate. The same university system that produced Lanre Arogbodade, that produced Mahmood, the great oracle, is the same one that is producing the ones that are driving around with Nance plate number on Mercedes Benz. And those are the ones that are the future of Nigeria. And you are not asking yourself exactly what is to be done with Nigeria. And I'm only talking about education. Would you like us to talk about security? Let's talk about security. Where your national security advisor is arming a Fulani militia, the same one where the same security situation in Nigeria, where the Motawale, the Minister of State for Defense, is credibly accused of being a partaker in the terrorism that we glibly call banditry. That is the country that we need to be asking ourselves, what is to be done with Nigeria? I'm not interested in bellyaching, but I need to paint a picture so that you realize the urgency of the moment and the need to stop thinking the way you're thinking. There is too much pedestrian thinking in Nigeria that we're just talking, how will I feed to my family? How do I pay this bill? We are not asking ourselves serious questions, looking at the consequences of our actions in the here and now and our inactions on tomorrow. We're not looking at any one of these, and it is critical that they be looked at. The security of Nigeria is horribly compromised. I live in Lagos. Every time I have to go to Ibadan, I'm having palpitations. To travel out of Lagos to attend my Ferry meetings in Ilesha is scary sometimes, not just because of the bad roads, non-existent roads, I should say, but the security situation, the deplorable security, is almost like there is a constant state of siege that has descended upon the country. And it's almost as if the government, it's not even almost, the reality is that the government, being complicit in the mess, does not appear interested in the least bit about doing something about it. Instead of looking to secure the lives and properties of Nigeria, they move around in convoys that resemble army divisions. And then they leave the rest of us to the vagaries of the mess they have created. Do you want me to speak to the economy? Some people created what they called ways and means, and they were printing naira for which they had no dollars. It wiped out your savings and mine. It devalued the naira. Nobody is paying for it. Yeah, they're pointing fingers at Emefiele, but was Emefiele alone in doing it? Money can be, who are the persons who have destroyed our economy to the point where even your salary, the basic salary of the average Nigerian, is not enough to feed him or his family or to do anything of consequence for him? If you're an employer who has a conscience, you are compelled to constantly look to augment the salaries that you are paying or to increase salaries. But how much can you increase a worthless naira so that you may cushion the effect of devaluation and inflation on the staff? How much can you actually pay anyone in today's Nigeria that will be enough recompense for the labor, and that you yourself, you are going to be able to generate from your economic activity without stealing. So the only persons for whom this country is working is the ruling class. And we, the victims of Nigeria, need to become aware of the need to do something about this country so that we do not remain perpetually as victims, railing at means like I would appear to have been doing all through my life, simply because we do not appear to be willing or able to understand the need to act as one so that we may come out of the mess in which we have become immersed. The priorities of successive government is not suggestive of a leadership that is even aware of the urgency of a situation. Everything just appears to be dandy, nice and fine with them. Nobody appears to be bothered by the drift, the near complete collapse of the whole country. But as I was looking at all of this, I was reminded of something I had written in the Imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution. And this was where I spoke to the similarities between a man's habits and the choices that a nation makes. If you consider the fact that a man's habit forms and shapes his life, you must also then understand that a nation's choices, consistent choices, also shapes the outcome and the future. The reality is that when you realize that having spent the kind of money we have spent, we are still left in darkness. I started this broadcast with Nepal. I lost power midway into the broadcast. I can't get up to open windows, and I'm enjoying the pleasure of the heat simply because I live in a country that has elected not to make power available to the people. If power is available to you, you become productive. If you're productive, you create wealth. How can a system that is designed to impoverish you allow you to create wealth? So the power poverty is systemic and deliberate. It is to assure the poverty of the victims so that their mind is constantly fixed on survival and they are rarely able to remember to question and ask, how did we get here? So what is to be done with Nigeria? The Yorubas will say, Kila nfani orogbo, apa kolawe, afisenu, otunkoro. What is the value of the bitter cola? You break it open. It has no lobes. You put it in your mouth. It's bitter. Every contact with Nigeria elicits pain. The victims of Nigeria do not have the benefit of a country that cares for them because they are not citizens. Even something as basic as the tax bill is forged. There is nothing for which the Nigerian is allowed to enjoy any benefit. The only area where the country is consistently focused is on extraction of value from those who are on the menu. We can't vote for who we want. It has rarely ever happened in Nigeria. Even in 2015, when you people ushered in the tragedy when you voted in this APC, it wasn't even as if it was left to any chance. Jonathan was practically blackmailed into giving up power because he knew they had imported the terrorists that are today decimating the country. So our votes really count. Even the people who brought in the terrorists, they were dead sure that Jonathan would not allow for free and fair elections. So in spite of the overwhelming propaganda and everything, they were ready to soak the blood of baboons and dogs in the ground. And they imported terrorists. This is no longer something to be debated. It is beyond debate now. But the reality is this. What is to be done with this country that has proven to only bring pain and little or no benefit? Our passports are not beneficial. There is nothing to be gained with Nigerian citizenship again. You can't even be safe in your home. Even the state has become an enemy. The judiciary offers no hope. If anything, you despair when you are dragged before judges that you know have been compromised before you are even taken before them. And I say this from my own personal experience. The magistrate before whom I appeared had no basis in law. No law enabled him to send me to prison. And he knew. If he didn't know before, he knew by the time they brought the application that he deliberately frustrated. So when you live in a country where even the judiciary is useless, it comes to a point where you must ask yourself, what is the solution to this madness? What is to be done with Nigeria? The Yorubas will say, "Biwaju ò bá ṣe lọ, ẹ̀yìn á ṣe padà." If you can't go forward, you must be able to retrace your step. The current state of chaos will continue until there shall be a managed implosion that will splinter Nigeria if we are not careful. Look, white men are buying chunks of Africa and creating private countries. One is springing up next door in Benin Republic. One is springing up next door in Benin Republic. Your National Assembly of crooks and thieves were not even able to be compromised sufficiently for your tax authorities who are demanding the ransom they want to label tax. They had to forge the tax act so that they can have provisions that are so draconian, it bespeaks the fact that we are no longer pretending with ourselves. The Nigerian state and its beneficiaries, both the ones who are feeding at the table of impunity in Nigeria and the ones to whom they report in the international community, with France only being the current manager, they are the ones at the table and we are the ones on the menu. And it is time we told ourselves this basic truth. The West is happy to tolerate dictators anywhere in the world as long as they have the stability to extract. And I assure you, these our ruiners, they are happy to take law and order over justice and equity. Me and you are the victims, and it is we who have the duty to ask ourselves what will be done with this country. You have a country where they have assured that you actually have little or no access to cash. They are the only ones who had over time stored up cash. Me and you, no access to cash, whether that's Naira, whatever, we have no access to cash. They have infinite access to cash, and then they brought this, their new tax law. This is the final frontier in the battle to enslave the Nigerian. And we are sleeping while dictatorship is calcifying with judicial complicity. Wike is pushing his children into politics. Umai's children are in politics. Orji Uzor in politics. There are innumerable ones in the Southwest as well. Obasa's son in politics. Seyi Tinubu might be your next governor in Lagos State. Your votes do not count, and the judiciary will endorse it unless me and you decide to do something. about it because we are sleeping whilst a dictatorship is being installed in our country democratically. I believe that it is time to tell ourselves the truth. The only thing that can be done with Nigeria is to restructure it, reimagine it, find a way to get together a critical mass of its victims, sell them a new vision of this country, draw a line in the sand, and confront this system. The one thing I have never been shy about is to tell you what it will take to save Nigeria. And this is my own belief. It will take a revolution to save Nigeria. That revolution might come through the ballot, but I'm not convinced it will. But if sufficient numbers are persuaded to believe in the vision, not the person, vision for a new Nigeria placed on the ballot. If you don't place the vision for a new Nigeria on the ballot, you cannot mobilize the people to stand behind their votes. And that is why the distraction has been completely about politics. When a leadership emerges that understands the place of visioning and then places that vision on the ballot, mobilize the Nigerian people behind it, we may have a democratic revolution. I am deliberately pacifist in my stance. I seek a peaceful revolution, but it is important that it be defined. What is a revolution? A turnaround. Nigeria is headed for the cliff, and if it must turn around, it will take deliberate visioning, deliberate mobilization of its victims, deliberate and intentional planning before it may turn around. But it is critical that the victims understand the need to find common purpose. That we are decidedly peaceful does not mean that the system will be anything but violent. So when I speak to a peaceful revolution, I am not being romantic. I am not unmindful of the fact that the system will seek violence. But if enough number of us, the victims, and I guarantee that over 99% of Nigerians are victims of Nigeria, if we will build bridges across the ethnic and religious divides, the partisan divides, recognize the commonalities of our problems, our afflictions, it then becomes easier to find common purpose and to move as one. They will always seek to divide you with ethnicity. Religion is always handy when it is time to divide you. They will find distractions as well. But I assure you that this is why I asked the question, what is to be done with Nigeria? And that question is asked of each and every victim of Nigeria. Do you want to continue bellyaching about something that has refused to change throughout my own lifetime? We've had this democracy, it's going to be 27 years. It's battered nothing beneficial to the victims of Nigeria. If anything, we've become less free. If anything, a dictatorship has emerged. A one-party state is calcifying. The beneficiaries of Nigeria are happy for it to happen. You, the victims, you need to start asking yourselves these questions. Even if not for you, if you're a member of my own generation, if not for you, do it for your children. Let me assure you, children do not learn from what you say. They learn from what we do. And they are voted largely with their feet where they can. Those of our kids who could run away from Nigeria, they've marked our scripts. They've concluded that we have failed and they have largely fled this land. We, whilst alive, must be honest enough to tell ourselves the truth. We have indeed failed, but our situation is not intractable and we can yet succeed if we will find common purpose and understand that the only way we can save the future is by turning around. This conversation is one that must continue, and it is one that we must have amongst ourselves. But if you think about it, Tinubu was in Turkey. If you really truly tell yourself the truth, that was a very frail old man. Regardless of how you may feel about Tinubu, I'm sure you don't wish him dead. Because when you look at what will come after him if he should, you then understand the urgency of why you should begin to ask yourself, what is to be done with Nigeria? Shetima is a much stronger, fitter person and much meaner too. An Islamist to the core and one who thinks nothing of sacrificing any one of you for his ambitions and vision. It is not about money. Tinubu, all that one is focused on is money. And he will settle anything he needs to settle to be allowed to continue to steal as much as he cares. Shetima is not just about money. It's about ideology. He will entrench that dictatorship that has already been erected in a manner that you will never believe is possible. Most brutal fashion. But it's not about persons. It's about the system that has allowed this. And it is about you needing to understand that what you're supporting in terms of human beings is not as dangerous as what those human beings are erecting for others to build upon. It is time to seriously find the grace to speak as one and to act as one, at least a critical mass. Yoruba says that àbọ̀rọ̀ là ń sọ fọ́mọlúàbí tó bá dénú ẹ̀ á dòdìdì. A word is enough for the wise. Those are the words of my elders, my ancestors. It's a new week and it's a new month. May it bring you peace, may it bring you clarity, and may you find understanding. Have a blessed week and a blessed month. God bless you. Amen.